Pinterest is lost, and today we're going to talk about why. Now, let me preface this by saying I am a longtime user. I'm very loyal to Pinterest because I understand the heart and soul of what it represents and what it's for. Contrary to the popular, stance, I am not confused by what Pinterest's intent is or was, nor by the vision that Ben Silberman put out for the platform. However, well, I should say, because I understand it, I can speak effectively on why Pinterest is actually lost. I've been a user of Pinterest since 2010 approximately, and I have been frustrated over the years with its hesitance, with its um, slowness to adapt or evolve. And things have come to a head over the last 3 years because I'm like, okay, Pinterest, we got to do something. I need to tell you about yourself. So I've been doing research over the last 3 years on and off on Pinterest. I've been looking into data on its users. I've been reading their reports and trying to understand their revenue model, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a lot of information compiled and a lot of perspectives as a result. So Pinterest is lost, and I'm going to tell you why again. Pinterest is lost because it has not effectively communicated its value. It has strayed from the vision, and it does not have consistent messaging. So because Pinterest is lost, everybody who surrounds Pinterest is lost as well. Pinterest started with Ben Silberman's vision because of a problem. We'll say, well, in quotes, problem, not a big actual problem, but a experience that he had. He was a collector as a child, and because collecting was so ingrained in his identity, as he grew up, he probably continued to collect, and he got to a point where he said, "There's no place on the internet where I can share this side of myself," and he was in a sea of tech uh, platforms that were coming out that were for expressing certain sides of yourself or in certain manners, and he felt like there was a gap in the market, and frankly I agree with him. So there he decided with his co-founders Evan Sharp and Paul Sciarra. So he decided he was going to fix this problem. He was going to fill this gap. So we see here, that's a little preview into the foundations of Pinterest. But when we look at how Pinterest is talked about from different sources, including Pinterest itself, we don't have a clear line to the vision that he put out. Now, we're going to get more into how he talks about Pinterest later on. But let's read off a couple of the ways Pinterest is described. Pinterest Facebook says, Pinterest helps you find inspiration to create a life you love. Now that arguably is consistent with things that he has said when he talked about the platform. When you Google it or search it in DuckDuckGo, AI pulls from Wikipedia and it says Pinterest is a social media service for publishing and discovering information through digital pin boards where users can share and save ideas on various topics like recipes, home decor, and fashion. Very specific, does not communicate the value of identity that collecting is correlated with based off of Ben Silberman's original vision and his solution for the problem. Again, from Wikipedia, over here we have Pinterest is described as American photo sharing and publishing website. Okay. Then it goes down. Pinterest is an American social media service for publishing and discovering of information in the form of digital pin boards. This includes recipes, home, style, motivation, and inspiration on the internet using image sharing. Okay, this is similar to what we just read, but kind of pulls it out a little more. Again, very specific, does not communicate the value or the heart holistically, as far as I'm concerned, of what Pinterest is. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I do think it's important that I go through each one of these. Forbes describes Pinterest as a photo bookmarking site. Pinterest itself says it is where you save, what you save, becomes how you live, discover trends, see what feels like you, and turn boards into plans, purchases, and real moments in the most positive place online. So, okay, some of this language is much more recent. The most positive place online is kind of Bill Reddy's time for, his reign, I'll say REIGN of Pinterest. The purchases kind of started with Ben, but it's more Bill Reddy's thing as well, I would say. And then Pinterest also described, I think, in one of its reports or resources for ad partners, that it has become a hugely powerful discovery and curation engine for shoppers everywhere. Okay, we continue. So now I want to talk a little bit about Ben Silbermann, the man. And the reason that I want to talk about Ben Silbermann, the man, is because I want to give an anthropological, psychological, human, experiential foundation to why Pinterest was started, which will show us why the vision that he had, I hope he still holds, and that he articulated in different presentations at the beginning is so important to the overall identity and branding of Pinterest. Ben, his parents are Chinese and German, and he was born and raised in America. The reason that this is important is because China and Germany have similarities across their culture from what my research found. They can be conservative, they can be morally driven, they can be focused on the greater good, the collective, your duty to society and family, as well as nature and wellness are important in their cultures. Now, being born and raised in America in Iowa, Ben, I'm sure, had a combination of all three of the values of these countries. And also, his parents are doctors. I think he said in one of his presentations that he thought he was going to be a doctor as well. So that's kind of the familial duty and expectations that he's carrying on into who he was as a person and what his career and, lifelong identity was going to be. Obviously, we know that didn't track, he changed course. But let's talk about growing up in America in the 80s and 90s, and Iowa specifically. Now, I'm somewhat familiar with Iowa because I went to college there, and I'm also familiar with Chinese culture because I had Chinese friends and classmates and cohorts and organization members that I spent time with and observed while I was in college. So in Iowa, especially in the 80s and 90s, we have to consider that life was a lot more um, analog, as it is said often. He probably was not on the computer a lot. He probably was reading. He collected bugs, he said, and insects. So he was obviously spending a lot of time outside. Now, it's important right here for me to articulate that Chinese people, from what I've observed and learned spending time with them, they are very focused on activities and how they spend their time and doing things together with other people. So whether it's eating dinner and talking, share and eating meals that they can share, whether it's doing barbecues, whether it's doing like putting on events with music, these things like that, karaoke, fun. I have observed that Chinese people, they have fun. They're very community driven. They're very relationship driven, and they stay together, and they spend their time doing activities. In America, that behavior was probably duplicated because of when he grew up. So, there are different people who talk about how there are no third places, I think they're called, anymore. And that's like skating rinks, parks, fun places, amusement games places, a place where you can just be, where you can just be young, where you can just explore, malls and things like that. He grew up in a time where that was everything that they did, in addition to like being outside. They weren't like just sitting at home. He was clearly outside because he collected insects. And if you look at his collection, it's beautiful. It's not just I got a milk jug full of bugs. It's like they're preserved, they're encased, right? So he not only has this habit of collecting that directly reflects who he is as a person, but he has made it beautiful, right? He's taken the time to curate how this identity looks. Me being who I am, I had to get some more foundation. I had to get more understanding of what his mindset was when he started Pinterest. So I watched these 4 videos. I was going to watch more, but if I did, I would have never actually put this out. So I had to stop myself. What he says about Pinterest is pretty consistent. Who he is as a person is very consistent. You see who he is and how he talks about Pinterest, and the passion and the drive that he has, and the poise and the um, assurity. He's very well spoken. He's very articulate in promoting the messaging and the value of Pinterest. He talks about collecting as a child. He talks about collecting being directly related to identity. He talks about people being able to pinpoint who they are, or not having the words to reflect who they are, but being able to do that in images. And then he talks about discovery as a tool for helping people identify who they are and have that reflected in their collections. And then he talks about the connection that you make with other people based off of your interest in who you are and the things that you pin. Now, I have much deeper thoughts on these videos and what I've seen, and I've taken notes, and I will present those notes in some format at some point. Based off of what Ben Silbermann has said, Pinterest should have a very clear path for who it is and articulating its value. But the challenge with having a vision come from one person is the ability to find people and who share the vision, who understand the vision, and who can preserve the vision. And sometimes, if we're being real, when corporations grow, when they are beholden to investors or a board of directors, sometimes that vision gets skewed. So when you have to hand off your baby to somebody else, they might not feel the same way about your baby that you do. They might not use your baby, in this sense I mean the platform Pinterest, the way that you use it. So things get skewed. So, and then you have the whole thing of, oh, we want to progress, so we got to make money, we got to figure out how to stay alive, keep the lights on. So we're gonna start adding stuff in, and becoming something that the tech people and the people who want a return on investment will like. This is how Pinterest is talking about itself now. Pinterest is a visual inspiration platform where people come to search, save, and shop the best ideas in the world for all of life's moments. Pinterest is the best place to confidently go from inspiration to action. Okay? People all around the world come to Pinterest to dream, manifest their future, and turn their inspiration into action. We're excited to offer users a new visualization tool built with Pinterest's cutting-edge visual technology. With collages, Pinterest becomes a user's personal sandbox for exploration, refinement, and visualization. Our vision is that all products will be shoppable in collages, just like everything else on Pinterest. We will help people engage more deeply with all the inspiring products and services they find on our platform so they can build their best lives. Pinterest, now this is from 2026, this big one. Pinterest is an AI-powered visual search and discovery platform positioned at the intersection of search, social, and commerce. We offer a unique and differentiated experience that enables people to go from inspiration to action, all on one consumer internet property. People use Pinterest to find useful, relevant ideas and bring them to life. So the messaging is, there are some key points that consist across what people are saying, but it's not enough for me. And maybe I'm just too picky, I'm too particular, I'm too granular, but it's not enough. It's not consistent enough. It doesn't communicate the heart of what Pinterest is. It doesn't communicate why I love Pinterest. It doesn't communicate why in 2010, when I saw this girl over this girl's shoulder, I saw all these beautiful pictures I had to look and see what it was called, and I ran back to my dorm room and got on there and signed up immediately. And then I don't even know if it was the next day, but I called and told my sister about it, because it was like there was finally something for us, for the people who were visual, for the people who wanted to organize beauty and identity, and who wanted to see themselves on the internet, and who wanted to curate their lives and their interests and the things that they love, so that they can have something that represented themselves. This is corporate. It's not enough. It's not human to me. And that is really the problem and the heart of why I'm so frustrated and passionate about Pinterest being lost, because it has no humanity anymore. When you listen to Ben Silverman's presentations, he talks consistently about humanity, about the human side of Pinterest, about why it's important, why it's necessary, why it's so important to your own identity. When you grow up without people understanding you, and I don't know if this is his story, but when you grow up without people understanding you, you are hungry, you are thirsty, you are desperate to have some way of not only knowing who you are, but sharing that so that it can be digested and appreciated. It's not just about being understood, it's about it being appreciated without words. It's about it being appreciated visually. Like, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. If I can show you a picture that represents who I am and you see it immediately, and I don't have to explain it, I don't have to break it down, and you get it, that is the most beautiful feeling in the world, because we are humans and we are all about connection. And what Pinterest was supposed to be was a platform where you could be yourself, identify who you are, find yourself, and then when you felt like it, when you felt comfortable, or once you have a grasp on that, you can share that, and you can find people who understand you because they share the same interests and identity as you do. It has the power to be one of the greatest communities that of this millennium. That might be too big, but this century. And yet, it has not even scratched the surface of what it could be, because of so many factors that I'm not going to get into right now, because I need to refocus. This is how I would describe Pinterest as a user. And this, I'm telling you, this is not even the most beautiful and the most poetic way that I could articulate it. But it gives some humanity, I feel. And it also takes from some of the corporate language and meaning that has been communicated so far of the brand. This is from the perspective of a user, but in the voice or tone of someone who is presenting it, frankly, on a website to its users when they sign up, because that's missing from Pinterest right now. And we're going to talk about that at a later point, maybe. Pinterest is an inspiration and identity platform that helps people live a beautiful life that they love. This is done through discovery, where the visual first, taste driven technology lets users search and trade interests for ideas. On Pinterest, you can see who you are, craft who you want to be, and curate, organize, assemble the life you desire through collections. You are inspired to get offline and go live because pins show you how to do so. See it, pin it, live it. That's Pinterest. Again, this is not the best way I could have described it, but this is a start. If they had this on the first page of Pinterest before you had an account, people would be like, okay, let me learn more. Let me scroll, see how I can do this. The next video has to be me showing you what Pinterest is when you're not logged in, because it's confusing. Even my brother went on there and was like, I don't actually know what the platform does, because it's telling me all these features instead of actually telling me what it does and what it's for. As I continue, Pinterest is founded on these three categories. You could say philosophies, you could say values, aesthetics in the philosophical sense. Beauty is experienced through the senses. Beauty is in the life that we live. Everyone can create, everyone can capture, everyone can experience beauty, and beauty is experienced through the senses. The psychology of collecting. Our collections reflect our tastes and our experiences, our identity. We are what we hold on to. And you could say we become what we hold on to. And that goes well into nostalgia, which is a longing for the past. Even in the present, we can hold on to the best parts of the past, a longing for a time where we lived more, when we lived more. If that is not Pinterest, I don't know what it is. I literally don't know what it is, because it's so much more I could say, but I'll pause there. And we will convene later for more. This has been Pinterest is Lost and Why. I've offered a glimpse into the problem, a peek into potential solutions, and I hope you have enjoyed so far. Thanks for listening.